The Eighth Crusade was a crusade launched by Louis IX of France against the city of Tunis in 1270. The Eighth Crusade is sometimes counted as the Seventh, if the Fifth and Sixth Crusades of Frederick II are counted as a single crusade. The Ninth Crusade is sometimes also counted as part of the Eighth. The crusade is considered a failure after Louis died shortly after arriving on the shores of Tunisia, with his disease-ridden army dispersing back to Europe shortly afterwards. Prelude. It is said that King Louis always regretted the result of his fateful Seventh Crusade that led to his capture at the hands of the Mamluks. 20 years later, nearing the end of his reign at the age of 56, Louis concocted plans for a final attempt to impose European status in the Holy Land. Louis was additionally disturbed by events in Syria, where the Mamluk Sultan Baybars had been attacking the remnant of the Crusader states. Baybars had seized the opportunity after the War of St. Sabas pitted the cities of Venice and Genoa against each other between 1256 to 1270, which had exhausted the resources and manpower of the Syrian ports that the two cities controlled. By 1265, Baybars had captured Nazareth, Haifa, Tehran, and Arsuf. Hugh III of Cyprus, nominal king of Jerusalem, landed in Acre to defend that city, while Baybars marched as far north as Armenia, which was at that time under Mongol control. In 1268, the ancient city of Antioch fell to Baybars, with all its inhabitants slaughtered. Siege of Tunis. These events led to Louis's call for a new crusade in 1267 and beyond, although there was little support this time. Jean de Joinville, the chronicler who accompanied Louis on the Seventh Crusade, refused to go. Initially, as with all crusades, the crusade would have targeted lands on the coastline of Outremer, with the ultimate aim of recapturing Jerusalem. However, Louis was soon convinced by his brother Charles of Anjou to attack Tunis first, which would give them a strong base for attacking Egypt, the focus of Louis's previous crusade as well as the Fifth Crusade before him, both of which had been defeated there. Charles, as King of Sicily, also had his own interests in this area of the Mediterranean. The Caliph of Tunis, Muhammad I al-Mustanzir, also had connections with Christian Spain and was considered a good candidate for conversion. It is suspected that Charles's interest was purely economical, rather than religious. In 1268, Charles managed to secure his inheritance of Sicily from the Hohenstauffens after defeating Conradin at the Battle of Tagliacozzo. Louis left on a huge fleet from southern France, landing on the African coast in July of 1270, a very unfavorable season for landing. Much of the army became sick because of poor drinking water, with his Damietta-born son John Tristan dying of dysentery on the 3rd of August. On the 25th of August, Louis himself died from a flux in the stomach, one day after the arrival of Charles. On August 25, 1270, his dying word was Jerusalem. Charles proclaimed Louis's son Philip III the new king, but because of his youth Charles became the actual leader of the crusade. Aftermath. Because of further diseases, the siege of Tunis was abandoned on the 30th of October by an agreement with the Sultan. In this agreement the Christians gained free trade with Tunis, and residence for monks and priests in the city was guaranteed. After hearing of the death of Louis and the evacuation of the Crusaders from Tunis, Sultan Baybars of Egypt cancelled his plan to send Egyptian troops to fight Louis in Tunis. Charles now allied himself with Henry III of England's son Edward, who had arrived in the meantime. When Charles called off the attack on Tunis, Edward continued on to Acre, the last Crusader outpost in Syria. His time spent there is often called the Ninth Crusade. Louis's propensity for crusading earned him saintly status, and he was canonized on the 11th of August 1297. He is widely considered as one of the most popular Capetian monarchs. Attendant literature. Bertrand d'Allemanin, a diplomat in the service of Charles of Anjou, and Ricaute Bonnemel, a Templar in the Holy Land, both composed songs around 1265. Bertrand criticized the decline of Christianity in Outremer, while Bonnemel criticized the papal policy of pursuing wars in Italy with money that should have gone overseas. The failure of the Eighth Crusade, like those of its predecessors, caused a response to be crafted in Occitan poetry by the troubadours. The death of Louis of France especially sparked their creative output, notable considering the hostility which the troubadours had previously shown towards the French monarchy during the Albigensian Crusade. 3 plants, songs of lament, were composed for the death of Louis IX. Guilhem de Ropol composed Forts Tristes et Salvageres for Louis. Raymond Gauchelm de Bezes composed key volume of a Complet de Ramastança to celebrate the preparations of the Crusade in 1268. But in 1270 he had to compose Ab Grands Tribals et Ab Grands Marimons in commemoration of the French king. Ostorp de Segret composed Nos Quim So, Tan Sui Desconocens, a more general crusading song that laments Louis but also that either God or Satan is misleading Christians. He also attacks Louis's brother Charles, whom he calls the Capsigets of the infidels, because he convinced Louis to attack Tunis and not the Holy Land, and he immediately negotiated a peace with the Muslims after Louis's death. After the Crusade, the aged troubadour Pere Cardinal wrote a song, Tots lo mons es vestitis et abrazats, encouraging Louis' heir, Philip III, to go to the Holy Land to aid Edward Longshanks. Satiric verses were composed in Tunis about Louis's new plan to invade Tunis. O Louis, Tunis is the sister of Egypt, thus expect your ordeal. You will find your tomb here instead of the house of Ibn Loqman, and the eunuch Sobi will be here replaced by Munkar and Nakir.